Hey guys, Dr. Wes Fox here today. Today I want to talk about, I'm going to be looking down at my notes as we go over this because there's a lot of information to cover, but I want to talk about indoor air quality. The reason for this is because number one, we are getting into the season right now where it is cold in winter in certain areas. And number two, a lot of us are either number one, working from home, are starting to go back to the office and working indoors from the office. And so throughout this whole pandemic, whether we're talking about COVID or any other viruses, the risk of infection, right, is directly the product of the volume of viral exposure, any virus, and then you multiply that by time. And so if we can reduce the volume of exposure to the viral particles in our home, in our workplace, then we can also decrease the risk of getting, whether it's COVID or the flu or the cold, it doesn't matter. So we want to learn how we can approach indoor air quality so that way we can create the healthiest living spaces at home and in our work office. And so some of the ways that we want to look at doing that is number one, through ventilation. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do that. First is mechanical ventilation, which most of us are not going to do because it costs a lot of money. And there's systems that you can put in your house that will bring air in from the outside, use your furnace and other devices to filter everything a little bit, pass it through your house, and then kind of push it out. And you can do the same thing in commercial. But like I said, very expensive. Now, the second way, which is the easiest way, is going to be ventilation via opening your windows, opening the doors. We saw this a lot in the beginning of COVID during the summer. Businesses would just open their doors. You could pop a window open, but it doesn't really do much for people in cold climates where you can't really do that. And so there has to be other ways or means that they can improve their air quality while being able to, just feel comfortable. And right now, it's one of those things that the media has not talked a lot about. They have not talked about how if you increase the quality of your air indoors, you can directly decrease your risk for developing certain infections, whether COVID or any other viruses. So the main thing I want to talk about is how can we ventilate that environment. So the first thing that I would say is, number one, we want to start looking at our house. And a good rule of thumb is if you live in a more recently built house, then you can assume that your ventilation is not very good, but your energy efficiency is really good. So now when we build houses, they built them tight knit because what they want to do is they want to improve the efficiency. So they want to keep the cold air in or the warm air and not have a lot of dissipation outside the house. And also, what that also means is it can keep those environments more dirty because the air and the ventilation is not good because everything is in a sealed box. So the easiest thing that people can do, assuming that you are in a house like this now, if you're in an older house, yeah, it may have a little bit of ventilation. It may have some leaks and things like that. And you have to crank up the air to keep it warm or crank it down to keep it cool because it's just leaving your house. Then you already have that personal ventilation. But some things that people may want to do is if you're in a cooler environment, so like myself, I'm in a cooler environment. Some things that I do to improve the ventilation is I tend to bundle up a little bit more and maybe just crack a window in opposite sides of the house just to get a little bit of a draft going in there to get more ventilation in, because the more time that we can have the air cycling in through our house and cleaning out, whether it's in your home office or at your work, the more fresh air you come in cycling in and out, the lower that viral load is going to be because you have cleaner air. Now, if you live in an area that's really polluted, then obviously that option will not make sense. But in general, that's going to be the easiest and quickest way to do it. That's one of the reasons why in airplanes they filter out air so often, because you're flying with all these passengers inside there. They have to filter the air every 2 or 3 minutes to keep it clean. So, another reason you want to do that is because right now we're having a lot of people coming in and out of the house, whether that's like a repairman, the internet guy, whoever it is. You want to have clean air flowing in the house. Same thing with the office space. If we have a lot of coworkers coming in and out, we don't really know what they're being exposed to or what they have coming in with them. But the easiest way to do it is, let's try to get some fresh air in there. Now, if your work has a way where they can do the mechanical ventilation, then that would be the first thing that I would do. If you can do the non-mechanical ventilation, which is pop open the window, I would recommend keeping something popped open so we can get that air cycle coming in throughout the day. Now, the next way to improve air quality is going to be filtration. So let's say for some reason you don't have access to good ventilation, then filtration is where you're going to want to look into. So that's going to be those little devices, the HEPA filters and the air purifiers, things like that. We'll want to get things that essentially clean out your air for you and help purify that. Now, that would be really good to keep at home. If you can't open the windows, then try to purify all the particles in the air and get them removed. Same thing at work. You can get a little desktop version of an air purifier, keep it by you, and it's going to put like a little dome around your little workspace to keep those areas purified. I would recommend, regardless if you have the ventilation system in place, I would recommend that each and every one of us have a purification system, one for our house, and then even a tiny one for our workspace, just to keep everything clean, keep the air around you good. Okay, so those are some of the steps of keeping that indoor quality around us good, because right now we're stuck inside. We're going to be stuck inside. We're working from inside, and there's nothing right now that actually talks about how to improve indoor air quality, which indirectly improves your chances of or risk of getting COVID or other things. These are easy to do things that you can do today that can improve your overall health and wellness. So to recap, work on getting better filtration. So a little air purifier at the desk, air purifier at home. And then the second thing is really work on ventilation. So ventilation at home. If you're in a cold air environment like Colorado, like where I'm at, then there's some risks that you have to take, which means you might have to pop open the window and wear an extra layer, but you're getting that cycle of air flowing through your house every hour, every 20 minutes. If we can get that flowing good in our workspace as well, that's going to keep us better. So the ventilation and then the purification of the air or the filtration, focus on those two things, because right now we are in this season. So if we can keep those good, then we can decrease our risks of getting any of these viruses, flus, colds, COVIDs, whatever you want to call it. Thanks, guys.